consumer. So I said, well, you know, all of those things are true, but in the meantime, while I still can breathe and can still do things, I'm going to take some action. So I went to work for Brian Baird in my castle, working on the bill. The Republican line is that we can't afford new federal spending. Today, we actually have a scientific study, I can give you footnotes, that the federal government spends between $4.7 and $6.3 billion a year through Medicare, Medicaid, and the VA, treating an untreatable disease. There's that much money is being spent on pulmonary fibrosis patients with no positive outcome because we really don't have anything to treat them with. So if we succeed in rallying enough support to pass this legislation, we're going to create jobs for researchers. We're going to reduce the federal deficit because they're going to find an answer. Maybe not a cure, but a treatment. In my personal case, if you stop the pulmonary fibrosis today, I'm going to die of something else. I mean, I can live with it the way it is today if you stop the progression. So that's the economic motivation. And we're not talking millions, we're talking billions of dollars being spent annually. This legislation that I'm advocating for asks the federal government to spend $16 million spread out over 5 years to build and operate the registry. Invest $16 million over here, get back $6 billion over here. It's not really selling well in the Tea Party crowd, but everybody else seems to sort of get that. This is where I don't want any of you to be. You feel like you've been diagnosed with something that doesn't have a treatment and you're out there by yourself, and by the fact that you're here and you're members of this support group, you've already proven, you understand the facts that it's fun to hang out with some of your friends that understand what you struggle with every day. You're certainly not alone. And when you look around, there's a lot more allies out there than you know about. I couldn't convince Congress to pass a piece of legislation by myself. Excuse me, I went to Holland & Knight, is the 27th largest law firm in the United States, 908 lawyers. And one of their partners is actually a client of my business for my day job. And he said to me, why aren't we helping you with this legislation? I said, I don't know. I wish you would. And Holland & Knight stepped forward and said that we have a huge office in Washington, D.C., over 100 lawyers, and we'll give you our Washington office for free. This is the point I said earlier where I went to the coalition and the foundation and said, they need a client, they need a 501c3 nonprofit client. And both organizations said, advocacy is just not a big enough piece of what we're doing. And we don't want to be bothered, it's just too much, it's too complicated. So the Pulmonary Fibrosis Advocates was born, and Michael Gaba is the federal policy leader of their National Healthcare and Life Sciences team. And Michael, I would guess, is spending 10 or 12 hours a week on this legislation. He bills at $650 an hour when he's billing. This guy's serious heavyweight. Lindsay Britt is an administrative assistant in the office in Washington, D.C. So when I had a conversation with the congressman that I did about the boys in Montana last week, Denny Reberg is the congressman's name, he needed some backup information. I picked up the phone, called Lindsay. She has all of my electronic files live in Holland & Knight servers in Washington, D.C. too. She printed them out and carried him up to the hill, and within an hour of me talking to the congressman, he had backup information he was looking for. Intermute is a contributor to Great Matters and is the drug company that is responsible for pirfenidone, and they are helping lots of support groups around the country get going and keep going. IPF today. You all wrote down that website address, because if you haven't been there, you need to go. There are 52 different research centers in 27 different states. Somebody got up this morning, took a shower, ate breakfast, drove to work, and their job every day of the week is to find a solution to pulmonary fibrosis. 52 different places, 27 different states. There are hundreds, maybe thousands, I've never actually undertook a count, of research professionals working on this disease. So when you feel like you're out there by yourself, you're not. We've talked about the 3 other organizations there. The chicken and the egg came to me. This is the problem about how do we get more money out of the National Institutes of Health for Pulmonary Fibrosis research. I'm going to show you a slide in a few minutes that has hard numbers about how much is being spent on it. But the issue, Jim Kiley is the guy at NIH. Of course, you know there's a guy who gives out grants for lung research. That's what Jim Kiley does for a living. He says, I'm not getting enough grant requests. We have plenty of money. NIH's budget is $30 billion a year. There's lots of money in the pot, but until you have a patient registry, we can't attract enough young researchers. So, how am I going to get there? I got to get the registry. If you build it, they will come. That's Kiley's message. A fully functional, multi-center, translational research center, National Pulmonary Fibrosis Patient Registry. That sounds like a lawyer talking. You speed up the research that's already underway. You spur new research. Most importantly, in this economic environment, I'm a taxpayer, so I want the budget cut too. It's the public-private thing that will drive success. I wouldn't say this publicly, I guess I am saying it publicly, because they're recording it over there. I'm not sure the bill will pass. Or if the bill does pass, I'm not sure we'll get the $16 million. Maybe we pass the bill with, it's called an unfunded appropriation. But I can go to the private sector and raise $16 million faster than I can get the money out of Congress. Private enterprise, and I don't think we haven't already tried that approach, they've said, you don't have a workable database. You need the pulmonary fibrosis study group to design the registry before we'll give you money to build it. So if I can get that much out of Congress, half a loaf is better than none. Today, that's where we are. 14 United States Senators, 71 representatives, 85 members of Congress, 24.7% of them are Republicans, 75% of them are Democrats. And there are people, while I'm standing here, I know Michael Gava is at a meeting in Washington, D.C. We're working on it every day. This is what I do for I'm not afflicted with golf. I started to say play golf. I don't have another hobby. My hobby is this bill. Well, the resume of congressional activity as of June 4th. If you're not a political junkie, you probably don't care, but 7,458 bills have been introduced in this 2-year session of Congress. Now, admittedly, a lot of those are naming post offices after somebody or some section of highway. What percentage of those are serious bills like the Pulmonary Fibrosis Research Enhancement Act? I can't tell you, but right as of June 4th, 14.6% of those bills have passed. There's an organization that actually handicaps congressional legislation. They're giving us a 4% chance of this bill passing. How many of you seen the movie Network?
I love that.
Remember it?
Mm-hmm. Mad as hell.
There's a man there who is a news reader for a TV station, and he gets really angry about the stuff they're making him read. And in the classic scene from the movie, he goes up to the second floor of his house and he throws open the window and he sticks his head out and says, I'm mad as hell, I'm not going to take it anymore. And that's what I want you to become. I want you to look at those numbers and say, there's lots of frivolous litigation, there's lots of politically motivated legislation that doesn't deserve to pass. This is a very righteous bill. Congress really is responsive to its constituents. So if enough people are knocking on enough doors, writing enough letters, making enough phone calls, they will act. April 4th, 2011, the Republican or Paul Ryan budget plan came out, and they were trying to cut the fiscal year 2013 budget. That starts on October 1st of 2012 and goes for 12 months. He's proposing cutting the defense budget by $8 billion down to $519 billion from $527 where it is now. But the labor H, we call it the labor H bill, Labor, Health, and Human Services, which includes the National Institutes for Health and the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta, would get cut $7 billion. They're only starting at 157. So the Republican budget plan today disproportionately asks us, on the social side of the budget, take a hugely disproportionate cut to balance the budget. And the budget needs balancing. I have a checkbook, I balance it every month.